It appears happy on screen to sing in the rain. It was torture in the backroom. All Donald O'Connor did was smoke 4 packs a day to meet Gene Kelly's demands. The whole world watched as Kelly yelled at him. O'Connor was given a day to recuperate after his ravaged body finally collapsed. The studio doctor cautioned against going any farther. Kelly didn't give a shit. No one discussed the negative aspects of America's favorite musical. August 23, 1912, saw the birth of Gene Kelly in a rough, working-class Pittsburgh area. He was raised in an Irish-American family as the middle child of 5. While his mother Harriet stayed at home and reared the children, his father James marketed phonographs and was frequently on the road. Music was her passion. Her kids were encouraged to pursue the performing arts. Gene's mother signed him up for dance lessons with his brother when he was 8 years old. It was something he detested. He was teased by other lads, who called him derogatory names and started fights. Gene eventually quit dancing and didn't start up again until he was 15. His mother persisted, though. She started a family-oriented performing group called the Five Kellys, which gave performances at churches, hospitals, and other neighborhood gatherings. On the inside, however, Gene felt confined. He was a sportsman, not a dancer. But his entire style would subsequently be defined by that tension, that internal struggle between art and brutality. Gene had achieved stardom as an athlete by the time he entered high school. He did gymnastics, ran track, played football, and played tennis. Even playing shortstop for the Pittsburgh Pirates was one of his dreams. 3 years early, at 16, he received his diploma. And had sports, not show business, as his goal. However, he was most fond of hockey. For practice, Gene's father would freeze the backyard. A semi-pro hockey squad was training him by the age of 15. However, when he began acting in school productions, people took note. He performed with unadulterated strength. Once ignorant girls suddenly developed an admiration for him. That attention boosted Gene's self-esteem. Perhaps he could be more than just an athlete, he began to think. Next followed the 1929 crash. The Great Depression struck forcefully. His father got laid off. The funds were gone. Gene had just begun his journalism studies at Penn State, but he had to leave school to support his family back home. Every job he could find, he took. Dance gigs, ditch diggers, bricklayers, and soda jerks. Then everything was different. Dancing was becoming more than simply a pastime, it was a means of subsistence. After returning to school, he studied economics at the University of Pittsburgh, where he earned his degree in 1933. Even though he felt deep down that law school wasn't his calling, he tried it. His work ethic was shaped by the harsh years of the Depression. Gene began performing at night and teaching dance during the day. He and his 13-year-old brother, Fred, started competing in talent shows all across Pittsburgh. They had to use their imagination to get the prize money. Their own steps began to be made up. They paid great attention to vaudeville dancers, imitated what they liked, and then improved it. They incorporated forceful, low-to-the-ground athletic motions. It was muscular dance. Unaware of it, Gene and Fred were creating something new. The Gene Kelly Studio of Dance in Squirrel Hill was established by the family in 1932. As the lead instructor, Gene was just 20 years old. He put all of his energy into it. Students remarked on his boundless energy. He inspired in addition to instructing. Gene was able to develop his concept with each hour spent in that studio. Gene Kelly's goal was not just to dance but also to alter the perception of dancing. It was December 1940 that gave him his big break. In the Broadway musical Pal Joey, he played the lead role at the age of 28. It was not a charming or safe role. He played a performer in a nightclub who took advantage of others to advance, but he managed to make it work. At the time, the show's 374 runs were a major accomplishment. People saw that he was daring and new. Dance regulations weren't followed by Gene. "What the music and the drama demand, I create," he told reporters. His demeanor set him apart. He was an automated worker. He was once discovered practicing by himself at midnight following a 16-hour day by his co-star Van Johnson. Gene was still dancing beneath the one-lit light. Hollywood took note. In October 1941, he got a film deal with renowned producer David O. Selznick. Gene was not eager to get off Broadway, though. He said that he would finish Pal Joey first. And he took the stage quite seriously. But it was obvious that his path was about to change from the stage to the big screen. He starred in his debut movie in 1942. Selznick sold MGM half of Gene's contract because he was unsure of what to do with him. For Me and My Gal, a World War I-II musical, was the film. Starring was Judy Garland. When she saw her friend Joey, she explicitly asked for Gene. Gene, however, found the change difficult. His later admission was that he detested his appearance on the big screen. It was terrible, he claimed, to see oneself 20 times larger. Smaller, tighter movements were required for film. Not the grand Broadway fashion he was accustomed to. But his manner was distinctive. Dancing like silk, Fred Astaire donned tuxedos. Gene, dressed in blue denim, turned dancing into a sport. He had attitude and strength, and audiences enjoyed that. Was a hit with My Girlfriend and Me. MGM purchased the remaining portion of his contract. Male dancing didn't have to be delicate, as Gene Kelly demonstrated in a single film. It might be grounded, calm, and tough. His life and the way Hollywood would view dancing were both altered by that incident in 1942. Gene began creating a completely new style for dancing. It shouldn't feel distant or ostentatious to him. He desired a sense of realism. Dance for the common man is what he named it. He combined ballet, jazz, tap, modern dance, and even the jitterbug. Despite his wide range of influences, George M. Cohan stood out. Gene claimed to have Cohan's Irish spirit. He's usually cocky, full of fight, and up on his toes. That spirit, in his opinion, made masculine dance strong rather than weak. Not all boys wanted to dance, he knew. As a Pittsburgh kid, he had experienced that firsthand. Dancing was seen to be reserved for girls or unmanly boys. Gene smashed that notion. His movements were athletic. Like a boxer, he danced. His style had evolved into its own language by the middle of the 1940s, a language that asserted that one could move with authority without donning tails. But Gene wanted to be in charge, not just perform. His first attempt at choreography was a mop dance in Thousands Cheer, 1943. It may sound absurd, but it wasn't. It was innovative, it was smart, and it worked. In 1944, CoverGirl was his true breakthrough. Columbia Pictures offered him freedom once MGM loaned him to them. He made a crazy thing out of it. In one scene, he danced alongside his own image. It was the first time it was done. Gene's dancing had changed. To demonstrate what dancing could achieve on camera, he used split screens, reflections, film gimmicks, and even animation. Steps were no longer all that was involved. Using movement to tell a tale was the goal. By 1949, MGM had enough faith in him to allow him to co-direct on The Town. He was navigating the ship for the first time, not just staring. And then everything was different. He no longer choreographed for himself alone. Whole casts were directed by him. He employed a group, such as Carol Haney, Alex Romero, Gene Coyne, and Stanley Donen. Together, they used dance to create entire situations. Avoid using dance as a decorative element, but dance as a narrative element. For Gene, a dance sequence shouldn't be the end of a film. Rather, the tale should advance through the dancing. That thought turned become his mission. Donald O'Connor, meantime, was born in Chicago, Illinois, on August 28, 1925. At St. Elizabeth Hospital, he was the 200th baby born. His parents were already involved in the entertainment industry. His dad, John Chuck O'Connor, was an acrobat and strongman in the circus. He was raised by Effie Irene, a talented bareback horseback rider. Together, they were the O'Connor family, royal family of vaudeville, a vaudeville act. They were unable to recall Donald's birthplace or specific date because they traveled so much. From the beginning, he was a part of the show. He began dancing on stage when he was just 13 months old. Even though he was still unable to walk, they would hold him by the nape of his neck as they played music, and he would kick in time. Any infant could do that, he said later, but only he was paid for it. Despite being the seventh son in the family, Donald was only the fourth to live. The act also involved his older siblings, Jack, Billy, and Arlene. It wasn't all fun in show business, though. Early and severe tragedy struck. When Donald was just 2 years old in 1927, he and his sister Arlene were attempting to cross the street outside a Hartford, Connecticut, theater. An automobile swiftly arrived. Arlene, who was just 7 years old, was immediately slain. Donald lived. Their father passed just a few weeks later from a heart attack while performing in Brockton, Massachusetts. Within weeks, there were 2 deaths. Their mom was devastated. After that, she developed a fierce protectiveness toward Donald. He wouldn't be allowed to cross the street by himself until he was 13. Even when he wasn't performing, she maintained a careful eye on him. 3 other children had already died as babies in their household. With so much pain in their past, both stage lights and sadness influenced Donald's early years. The show, however, had to continue. Donald didn't attend a typical school like other children. After doing correspondence classes, he enrolled in Hollywood Professional School. But the stage was his actual classroom. He was able to sing before he could speak coherently, play instruments before he could read music, and dance before he could stand. Comedy, dancing, singing, and circus acts were all incorporated into the O'Connor family show. Donald had already mastered the timing and rhythm of a professional performer by the age of 4. He claimed that it felt late for him to begin singing since he didn't truly begin till he was 2 years old. He lived a life of perpetual motion. Cities following cities, one show after another. Because of such constant training, he became a natural. Then Hollywood arrived. At the age of 11, Donald and his siblings were given a brief role in the Warner siblings movie Melody for Two in 1937. He participated in a specialty dance. It was enough to draw attention, but it wasn't a significant part. Paramount signed him a year later. At the age of 12, they offered him $250 per week. That's around $5,000 a week now. He played the part of Bing Crosby's younger brother in the 1938 film Sing You Sinners. He was skilled and charming, and others took note. He soon began appearing with Gary Cooper and other celebrities in bigger movies like Men with Wings and Boeist, 1939. He even appeared in Tom Sawyer, Detective as Huck Finn. He got a terrific start with Paramount, but by 1941 he was ready for something bigger. He signed with Universal Pictures when he was 16. That marked a sea change. Universal had a scheme. The teen stars Mickey Rooney and Judy Garland, who were owned by MGM, Phil Theaters. Donald was paired with Peggy Ryan because Universal wanted their own version. Additionally, Peggy was from a vaudeville family. She had rhythm in her veins and was born in 1924. What's Cookin' 1942 was the first film they worked on together. Something clicked. The audiences adored them. They produced 7 musical comedies in a 2-year period. Top Man, Sisters, Get Hep to Love, Private Buckaroo, and Give Out are all bursting with passion, quick dances, frenzied facial expressions, and constant action. They provided the ideal retreat during the war. Among their most popular songs was Mr. Big, 1943. Although it started out as a low-budget B film, Universal recognized its potential. They invested an additional $50,000 to improve the musical sequences. These days, that's almost $850,000. The upgrade was successful. Following that, Donald's Universal productions were all higher-budget A features. He was more than just an adolescent idol. He was a potential leader. MGM producer Arthur Freed came up with a brilliant idea in 1952. He intended to use old songs he had written with Nazi Ord Brown in the 1920s and 1930s to create a musical. During the early years of Hollywood's transition from silent to sound motion pictures, such tunes originated. Adolph Green and Betty Comden, the film's authors, therefore chose to situate the film during that period. They were given nearly complete freedom by Freed. All he said to them was to write a film that used as many of these songs as possible. Stanley Donen, the director Freed brought in, had collaborated extensively with Gene Kelly. Kelly was the natural option to play the lead character Don Lockwood, who became a song and dance guy. Donald O'Connor was spared the ridiculous Francis the Talking Mule movies he was shooting at Universal thanks to Donen's strong push for him to play Cosmo Brown. They chose Debbie Reynolds, who was 19 years old, to play Kathy Selden. Though she had no dance background, she exuded energy, charm, and a lovely voice. It was not a cheap film. Production cost $2,540,800, $665,000 more than anticipated. Although the clothes alone cost $157,000, the investment was worthwhile. The movie generated $7.7 million when it came out in theaters in April 1952. It was a huge success. Gene Kelly did more than merely play the lead role. In addition, he and Stanley Donen co-directed and choreographed it. On set, that gave him a lot of power. With his audacious, flowing dance steps in CoverGirl in 1944, Kelly had already revolutionized the music industry. He was prepared to do much more now. Kelly's attention was on the dancing. Donen was in charge of the musical and theatrical sequences that took place behind the camera. But they had trouble working together. Co-direct, Donen later joked, actually meant fight. By the end, things had gotten so heated that they could hardly cooperate. Kelly was a stickler for detail. Everyone, notably Debbie Reynolds, was pushed by him. He regularly made her cry, she subsequently said. And when she became too agitated, Kelly would use Donald O'Connor as a target to vent his resentment. Even Donald O'Connor faced his own struggles. He joined the vaudeville act at the age of 13 months, having grown up in a vaudeville family. Thus, he learned to dance on stage rather than in a studio. In contrast to Kelly, who had years of rigorous ballet training, O'Connor had to fend for herself. He found it difficult to commit dance moves to memory and constantly felt like he was catching up. "I'd never received any official training," he acknowledged. "I was unable to learn routines. I was forced to start learning how to dance at the age of 15. He also saw a significant shift in style. He was one of many vaudeville dancers that danced from the waist up. Movie musicals requires the entire body to move. He had to become a complete dancer, as he put it. His athletic prowess was astounding. Even if he was unmatched, the rehearsals were harsh. Things were made more difficult by the attempt to match Kelly's identical style. Donald O'Connor entered MGM's Stage 15 on April 18, 1951, with no idea that it would turn out to be the worst day of his career. In a single day, Gene Kelly wanted him to film the entire Make 'Em Laugh performance. That entailed hours of constant falls on bare concrete, stunts, and dancing. Without any cushioning or stress absorption, the floor was extremely hard and painful. During the filming process, O'Connor smoked 4 packs every day. Even at the age of 26, his body was already under strain. Furthermore, this was not even choreographed by Gene Kelly. O'Connor was just thrown into a prop-filled room while 2 assistants watched. They recorded all of the amusing moves they observed. Acrobat training was not O'Connor's forte. A hand balancer, he was. That added to the difficulty of this routine. Time and again, he had to push himself beyond his boundaries. Due to Kelly's insistence on further takes and O'Connor's persistent efforts to please the perfectionist who wouldn't let him quit. An off-the-wall backflip was one of the most difficult tricks. Even with the help of his own brother Jack, one of the world's top acrobats, and a custom angled wall, it still hurt. Everybody gets hurt. The bruises were all over his feet. Only little rugs were provided by the crew to cushion his aching ankles. "Please help me," he said. He was decorated by them. He repeatedly fell to the ground. 13 distinct pitfalls. He remarked at one time that he thought he would have to end his life to complete the number the way it was going. Things grew darker behind the scenes. Kelly loudly attributed every mishap to O'Connor. Even when Kelly was at fault, O'Connor bore the brunt of the criticism. Kelly made him look bad in front of the staff. His punching bag was O'Connor. Realizing he couldn't vent his rage on Debbie Reynolds, who was 19 years old, O'Connor, therefore, took it all in. The mental torture, the physical suffering, and the expectation to be flawless. At last, the filming was over. He went home and passed out on May 1st. He spent 3 days immobile. Every muscle in his body let out a shriek. He was in the studio again on May 5th. "Think you could do that number again?" Gene Kelly questioned him casually as he approached him. For O'Connor, it was a joke. "Sure," he said. "Whenever you want." It was serious. The cinematographer had made a mistake. The aperture of the camera was not set correctly. It was overexposed in every frame. O'Connor's suffering had not even been captured on camera. He had a day to recuperate before the reshoot, according to Gene Kelly. The second shoot got underway on May 7th. The doctor in the studio advised against it. His muscles were injured. His body was unprepared. However, MGM was losing $37,000 every day due to delays. Kelly was not going to wait. Rather, they buttered him. The crew and cast arrived with presents. He was informed it was the best dance ever captured on camera. On the phone, Louis B. Mayer himself offered a bonus of $5,000. Yes, O'Connor said. The takes were a hobble for him. After each shot, he applied ice packs. He managed to get it off without getting the worst bruising. Some even claimed that it was superior to the first time. He was hurried to the hospital on May 8, the next day. There are differing reports. According to some, he was in St. John's for 3 days. Some claim a week at Cedars of Lebanon. In any case, his body was ruined, dehydrated, with 2 shattered ribs and damaged muscles. He had 40% of his body bruised. In one knee, he permanently lost 15% of its flexibility. He continued to make jokes about it in a subsequent interview. His smile said it all. The second take, he said, was superior. The biggest role of Debbie Reynolds' life was cast in 1951 when she was just 19 years old. She was chosen to appear in the hugely popular MGM musical Singin' in the Rain. However, she wasn't wanted by her 39-year-old co-star Gene Kelly. She had no formal dance instruction and was young and inexperienced. Kelly, a ballet dancer by training, was visibly angry when they first met. He gave her a thorough examination before icily asking, "What have you done before?" Debbie needed 3 months to prepare. Professionals such as Donald O'Connor, who had been dancing on television since he was 12, were at her side. Debbie was drowning, not merely trailing. With 3 dance instructors, she trained for 8 hours every day. It was violent. She once became so irate that she flung her tap shoes at a mirror, shattering it. Gene Kelly didn't help either. He yelled at her to brighten her smile. Despite the pain on her face, Gene would yell at me if I wasn't smiling, she later claimed, and my cheeks felt like they were about to burst. She once hid beneath a piano and sobbed because it got so horrible. She was discovered there by Fred Astaire. He was in his early 50s. He was a legendary figure who kept his rehearsals extremely quiet. However, he took an unprecedented action when he noticed Debbie crying. He asked her to observe him while he practiced. He danced until his face flushed, and she watched him. Then he reminded her, "You have to keep trying, even the greats find it difficult to be really excellent." Although it wasn't always that way, that moment gave her the strength to press on. Kelly stepped over the line during a kiss scene. What started out as a brief, fleeting movie kiss evolved into much more. In her story, Debbie later said that he seized her by the throat and pushed his tongue down it. She let out a cry, withdrew and frantically rushed around the set, pleading for a Coca-Cola to wash her mouth. She was only 19. The age of Kelly was 39. She had never even experienced a French kiss. She felt raped and degraded. Kelly wasn't finished being cruel. Although the well-known Good Morning dance scene appears to be happy, it was actually suffering. The shooting began at 8 a.m. At 11 p.m., they finally stopped. 15 hours of continuous dancing. By the end, Debbie's shoes were leaking blood from her feet. "Clean it up," was all Kelly said when she showed him. She found it impossible to leave the set. She was taken by assistants to her dressing room. For 2 days, doctors prescribed bed rest. Ultimately, Kelly used the first take. Debbie persisted, but she never lost sight of how difficult it was. She claimed that Kelly was always critical of her and never once offered encouragement. Between takes, she sobbed. Kelly acknowledged that she hadn't been kind to Debbie for years. "I'm shocked that she still talks to me." His widow attempted to defend him by claiming that he was merely attempting to make her look her best. Later in life, Debbie stated, "He had to be hard on me. It was the only way I could have gained so much knowledge so quickly." She did recall crying much of the time, though. The burden shattered more than just Debbie, though. Donald O'Connor, Kelly's other co-star, also suffered a